Leader, your word means everything. And sometimes, you have to make hard decisions as a leader. I don't know what it's like to be in that position. And as I said earlier, all presidents have pardoned people before. Well, hi, and welcome to another edition of the Ronin Leadership Podcast. It is Friday, December 6th. It's hard to believe we are in the heart of the Christmas season and almost to the end of the year. I hope all of you are doing well. Continue to thank all of you for subscribing to our channel. We continue to grow our subscribership, and also want to really thank you for your support of this channel. We've got some things coming up in the next year, and I just did a really fun, different podcast on how to make martinis. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. I'm going to try to do some more things like that outside of the leadership realm. I'm also going to try to jazz things up a little bit in terms of the people that we bring on as guests, as well as some of the content we're talking about. But please continue to hit the subscribe button if you haven't subscribed before, the like button if you like any of the content. That helps a lot, helps to grow our viewership. Share these videos with people if you think it would help them out. I always joke, share them with your friends, your family, your enemies, because all of them, even your enemies, could probably use a little bit of leadership training. Please go to mikehowardauthor.com. Also, you can find all my books, all the content there. I've just finished putting pen to paper on a third Jack Trench novel. It should be out very soon. We're just trying to get the editing done, and then we'll get that taken care of. But for now, I just want to talk to you about an issue that has come to light, and it really does deal with leadership at its core. And this has to do with the issue of President Biden pardoning his son Hunter. And every president has the right to pardon people on their way out of office. But what happened this time with the President Biden, which has gotten both, obviously, people on the right upset, but a lot of folks on his side of the House, Democrats and liberals, upset, is the fact that he blatantly lied to the American people for a long time. When asked about whether or not he would, whether he was going to pardon his son, he emphatically said no, time after time after time after time. And we have a video of clip that just shows some of the many of the times when he was asked, and he was emphatic that he was not going to pardon his son. And so I want to show you some of that right now.
This morning, while President Biden is on a 3-day trip to Africa, the firestorm over his full and unconditional pardon of his son is growing, even among some Democrats.
And as a member of Congress, I'm pretty angry because it's going to be incredibly important that political leaders of both parties stand up for the independence of the Department of Justice.
It is discouraging that he has now gone back on his word on that.
For months, the president and his team had repeatedly insisted Hunter Biden would not be pardoned.
And I will not pardon him.
We've been asked that question multiple times. Our answer stands, which is no.
But NBC News has learned he had discussed it with some of his closest aides, at least since his son's conviction in June. That's according to two people with direct knowledge of the discussions. They also said it was decided at the time that the president would publicly say he would not pardon his son, even though doing so remained on the table. The White House now denying that reporting, reiterating the decision was made this past weekend.
If it was my son, I'd pardon him too. But here's what I didn't like. Don't lie to us. Don't tell us you're not going to do it and then do it.
The president writing that he believes in the justice system, but also believes raw politics infected this process. The blanket pardon covers not only Hunter Biden's felony convictions on firearms charges and tax evasion, but also includes any offenses dating back to January 2014, months before he joined the board of a Ukrainian energy company while his father was vice president.
Joe Biden, for 50 years in public office, has always pridefully boasted about his word as a Biden. And I guess we now know that his word as a Biden is trash.
While Republicans slammed it, Independent Senator Joe Manchin said as a father he would have done the same, but he suggested another pardon.
What I would have done differently, and my recommendation as a counsel would have been, why don't you go ahead and pardon Donald Trump for all his charges and make it, it'd have gone down a lot more balanced.
With his sentencing dates looming, just days ago, Hunter Biden's defense team released a lengthy document outlining why they thought this amounted to a political persecution. The language in that document mirrored some of what President Biden used to justify his pardon. We asked the White House whether the president had seen the document or been briefed on it. We have not heard back. Savannah.
So as you can see, that was a video clip from NBC News, and not always I would say they're fairly left-leaning, if anything, but it was interesting. I think the reporting was pretty balanced, and it really called out the fact that President of the United States, leader of the free world, looked at the American people in the face over and over again and said he was not going to pardon his son, when it's been reported that even as to the summer, they talked about the fact that he was going to pardon him. And even his White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, blatantly lied to the press. Now, maybe you could argue that she was only saying what her boss, President Biden, was saying. We can speculate, and I don't like to speculate. I like facts. But the fact is, he lied. And so I always tie everything back to leadership. As a leader, your word means everything. And sometimes, you have to make hard decisions as a leader. I don't know what it's like to be in that position. And as I said earlier, all presidents have pardoned people before. I think Trump pardoned his father-in-law last go around. So it happens. They all do it for the most part. And you take that off the equation. I really don't care about that. What I do care about is that our leader, President Biden, lied. And you find people now trying to spin things, saying, well, he's only doing it because the other side does it. Well, that's not a good reason. That's a stupid reason. And you can't argue that it was, he's made the argument that it was a political thing. Problem with that argument is that it's his DOJ under Attorney General Merrick Garland that pushed forth those charges. And you may not have followed the case that closely, but initially prosecutors came forward with a case that was going to be very light on Biden, Hunter Biden, in terms of punishment. And prosecutors usually go for the jugular, right? But obviously they were handling this with kid gloves. And a judge, in her infinite wisdom, said, this doesn't make a lot of sense. You're bringing charges, tax evasion, and falsely applying for providing false information on a gun registration application that Hunter Biden had put out, but you're not really trying to impose any penalty. And so she said that was wrong, and they had to regroup the prosecutors. It was obviously they were trying to handle this with kid gloves because it was president's son. And then he came back and he was convicted and it was going to be sentenced soon. But now we have the pardon. So if you, as I've heard a lot of politicians say, I'm a dad and I would understand pardoning my son. I would do it too, but that's what they're saying. But they also say, by the same token, you lied, right? And you can't spin it any other way. You lied. You knew what you were going to do. Even if you say, well, I just made up my mind at Thanksgiving and I just decided that I was going to pardon him, you lied. There's a lot of things you could have said along the way. You could have said, I just have no comment about that. I don't want to talk about that. It's part of the legal, it's in the legal system now. Let the legal system run its course. And Biden has talked all the time about how he supports the justice system and the justice system needs to be what it needs to be. And he lied about that. So that's one part of what I want to talk about just quickly. As a leader, you can't lie. You have to tell the truth. Otherwise, you lose credibility. In terms of private enterprise, if you lie to your team, you're going to lose credibility with that team. And if you lie as a politician, and of course, people will laugh and say, well, that's what they do. What does a politician do when they open their mouth? They lie. Of course, a lot, if not most politicians do embellish or lie. But this was a big one. You're the president of the United States, and you're telling the American people you're not going to do something, and you just did it. You lied. And so he's lost all credibility as far as I'm concerned. His legacy is now shot for many, many aspects, but his legacy is shot. Especially, you can never say that you're a leader, that you were a great leader, because you weren't. One of your last acts in office was to go back on something that you said you wouldn't do. And the other aspect of this is that you look at a guy like Chuck Schumer. So Chuck Schumer, for those of you who may not follow politics that well, is the Senate majority leader, at least for now. That all changes in January when the Republicans take over the Senate. And they call him Leader Schumer, leader. And it kind of cracks me up whether it was Mitch McConnell when he was the House Majority Leader. They call him Leader McConnell. He wasn't a leader. He wasn't a leader at all. Didn't stand up for principles. Always cutting deals and blah blah blah. And Schumer's the same way. I think Schumer is just as corrupt as anybody else up there. But one thing, again, tying back to leadership, I want you to see a clip of him being asked questions after this whole thing broke out about Hunter Biden being pardoned by Joe Biden. And I've got some thoughts on that.
Do you agree with some of your Democratic colleagues who say that President Biden's pardon of Hunter Biden was wrong, unwise, was personal interest ahead of duty?
I got nothing for you on that. As I said, I got nothing for you on that.
Are you concerned that pardoning anyone on the way out of office, family members, sets a poor precedent?
Thank you. I've got nothing for you on that. I got nothing for you on that. Any other subjects?
Okay, that was a short clip, but I wanted you to see that because, again, an abdication of leadership. He's been asked a question by reporters, and I don't necessarily have the best opinion of a lot of reporters nowadays, but they have the right to ask the question, what are your reactions to the president pardoning his son? And he didn't answer the question. He kept saying, I've got nothing for you here. Do you have any other questions other than this? And he's got this smirk on his face, like this is amusing. This is a big deal. You are the Senate Majority Leader. You have no opinion. You have opinion on everything else, but you have no opinion on whether the President of the United States lied when he said he wasn't going to pardon his son. Now, one could argue, well, he's a Democrat. He's supporting his Democratic president, so he's not going to say anything. Fact of the matter is, Biden's on his way out. There are a lot of Democrats who have already expressed an opinion on camera saying that this was a big mistake on Biden's part, right? So you as a Senate Majority Leader, why couldn't you do the same thing and say, I can understand it because I think Chuck Schumer is a dad. I understand it from a father's standpoint, but I'm disappointed that he lied to the American people, something like that, because you would have been honest. As it comes across now, it's condescending, course, he has an opinion on it, and he's a representative of the people. He's been asked questions by the people, right? The reporters ask legitimate questions about what does he think, and all he does is, I'm not going to answer. He dodges the question, blah blah blah, and it's just that again that kind of the arrogance, the smirk on his face, lack of leadership. Be transparent when bad things happen, and you have to be able to be honest with your troops, honest with your shareholders, honest with your stakeholders, your partners as to what's going down. You can't just say, I don't have anything for you on that. I have nothing for you on that. I'm sorry, that doesn't wash. And so I wanted you to see kind of these two videos because it really emphasizes a lack of leadership. Just because people are in leadership positions doesn't make them leaders, right? It really doesn't. President Biden is in a leadership position, the ultimate leadership position. He's president of the United States. He's a leader of the free world. What does it say about credibility when a person in that position blatantly lies and then makes an excuse for it afterwards about it being political and all this other kind of stuff when it wasn't? It'd be one thing if the Republicans actually ran the DOJ or were pushing that investigation on his son, but it was his own DOJ that brought forth the charges, and it was legitimately taken care of, adjudicated in a court of law. His son was found guilty. You want to pardon him? Fine. But don't say you're not going to pardon him and then even not only did you lie about that, but you're lying about the reasons why you did it. And he's just a liar. End of story. And he's, whatever respect I ever had for him, I've lost, and I think a lot of people have too. And he's always worried about his legacy, where his legacy has now been tainted forever. And then Chuck Schumer. Again, you're servant of the people. The people are asking you legitimate questions. Answer the question honestly. But the problem is these folks have lost the ability to be honest with constituents, with the public. It's all about playing the game, getting their political favors, and knocking down opponents. That's it. If you can't admit when you fail as a leader, you can never be a great leader. All leaders are going to step on it at one point. You're going to fail. You're going to make a mistake, blah, blah, blah. It happens. You just have to own up to it. When you own up to it, you enhance your credibility. It's amazing, that dichotomy. Leaders think they have to be perfect. They don't. You're human beings. You make mistakes. And if you made a mistake, you made a mistake. What Biden should have done was saying, I'm pardoning my son. I know I said I wouldn't do it. And I'm sorry that I misled the American public, but as a father, this is how I feel, blah, 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 blah. It would have still been criticized in some aspects, but at the end of the day, it had come off a lot better for him than it is now. And for someone like Chuck Schumer, if you are not able to articulate an opinion on something that is pretty momentous, frankly, then what position are you in there to be called leader, Schumer, right? You're not a leader, far from it. You don't act like a leader, and you certainly don't have the respect of people if you can't answer basic questions because you don't want to, right? It's not that he can't answer the question about what does he think about it. He doesn't want to, because it's all politics, as opposed to, being a fair arbiter of what's going on in your position as a leader of the Senate, at least for now, and not being able to render an opinion because you don't want to hurt your party or whatever it is. It's by the same token, had he come out and said, I understand, but I'm just disappointed. I'm disappointed that he said one thing, but he did another thing. But it is what it is. But from my standpoint, we're disappointed that he misled the American people. Would that have made the airways? Of course it would have, but it would have been honest and it would have been something. But maybe it doesn't feel that way. I don't know. So, this is a short and sweet podcast, but it's just something that I think you as leaders should pay attention to. When you look at, first of all, if you look at politicians for leadership, you're looking in the wrong place. They're not all bad. There are some really great politicians. One person I've mentioned before, Will Hurd. He's no longer in Congress. He was a congressman out of San Antonio, Texas. We got to know him a couple times, and he's really great. He was a Republican, but he's moderate, willing to cross the aisle, and willing to criticize former President Trump when he was in office as well. He is an honest guy, right? And there are folks like him, but there are more people like, unfortunately, the Chuck Schumers and the Joe Bidens of the world in both parties that have kind of screwed the pooch for everybody. And so it'll take a long time for American people to have any kind of confidence in the political system, whether it's on the right or the left. Republicans now have the ball's in their court, and hopefully they will govern the way this country should be governed, honestly and transparently, and speaking truth to the American people, whether it's good or bad, right? An example will be this Department of Government Efficiency that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are going to head up. And they're already getting darts thrown at them, but at the end of the day, and I worked for the government for 22 years, I enjoyed working for the government, but of course there's waste in government. Absolutely, there's waste in government. You've got a lot of government bureaucrats that sit on their ass and do nothing, that are getting a paycheck. They should go. You have a lot of government employees that don't show up for work. They're working from home. Who knows what they're doing? They need to show up for work. There's so much fat. I mean, the Pentagon, right? We've spent over $10 billion in Ukraine, and I know I'm going off the subject a little bit, but maybe this is a precursor to another podcast. We spent $10 billion in Ukraine already. Do you think we can account for a lot of that money? Of course not. Pentagon has failed 3 audits, right? They can't even pass an audit, and yet we're continuing to spend money. So this Department of Government Efficiency, I think, is a good thing. We need to look at government and cut and make hard decisions. And as leaders, your job is to make hard decisions. That's why you're in a leadership position, right? The hard decision for Joe Biden would have been to let the justice system play out and let the sentencing take place and see what happens with his son. Because if I was in that position, not as the president, but as Hunter Biden, and I did what he did, I'd be in jail, right? I would be in jail because my name is not Biden, and I don't have the political. I don't have the political capital and air cover to keep me from getting, being arrested and being sentenced. So the hard thing, but the right thing for him to do would have been to let it play out and see what happens, and let his son take his punishment the way anybody who's broken the law should take their punishment, right? That's a hard decision, but that's what leaders have to do. So that's all I have for you today. I'd love to hear your comments on this. I know it's slightly political, but even when I talk politics, I always try to bring it back to leadership, because it all comes down to leadership. Our system of government will rise or will fall based on the leaders who are driving the ship. So we'll do. I'll have to see if we're going to do another podcast before the end of the year. I think we will. I think we'll have time. Just kind of a end of the year wrap up. So until that time, hope you have a great weekend. And please go to MikeHowardAuthor.com. Check out my books. Like I said, my newest one, called the Omega Deception, is in the final stages, and hopefully we'll get that out, crossing our fingers before the end of the year. And continue to hit the like button. And if this is your first time listening, please subscribe and share this video with others. So until then, take care. Bye.